All right, welcome, friends, to week 5 of this 90-day opportunity, this body transformation, this thing that I'm doing where I'm approaching wellness and health and these things that we know of in our culture. Sometimes we just think of it as like the fitness industry. Um, but I'm giving myself some goals and I'm approaching it from a different direction. I'm learning new things. I'm integrating them in new ways. And today we're going to talk about how I ease. Okay, I know that's an interesting term, and we're going to get into it today. But first, I need to confess something. I've been talking about these 3 areas. I talked about the analogy of a stool and how there's these 3 legs to support my goals. But there's actually one more leg to this thing. And at first, I was going to talk about this in a different way. But as I thought about it, it's actually very crucial to this mindset shift that has been going on inside me. Because when you have a plan or when you have a goal or you have something that you want to do, we've been in a mode of being in our culture, in the world that likes to come up with plans and programs and systems. There's all sorts of names and ideas around this. There's industrialization, there's the scientific method, there's the cross of planning. There's all these different ways that we talk about this age that humans have been for the last couple hundred years, even longer probably, where to get something done, you use your mind and you dissect the thing and you separate it into tiny different areas. And then you might decide to become an expert and try to maximize and become efficient at every single one of those steps. And that is how you execute something with excellence. That's how you know that you are going to achieve your goal and have the outcome that you are setting out to accomplish. And this emphasis on productivity and efficiency and effectiveness works very well. And in many ways, that is what we're doing when we talk about managing calories and creating a calorie deficit and looking at food through the lens of macros of proteins and fats and carbs. But that can only take us so far because these are all active protocols to achieve our goal. But there is an entire other story of what's going on that we are starting to wake up to, that we're starting to talk about more in the ether, in the culture, in the way that we relate to each other. Because while there are these active processes, there are these other things going on that we can say are inactive processes as well. And here's what I mean. When I want to stimulate muscle growth, then I know that I need to exert myself. I need to employ these concepts of progressive overload and getting as close to failure as possible. And I know that I need to do this for an appropriate number of sets to get the volume that will actually give my body the information, the signaling to build more muscle. But it's not in the doing of that exercise that my muscle grows. It's actually in the rest. So while we need this active step in the process, this inactive step is actually where all the magic happens. And that's why it's important to talk about this last leg, this last area that's supporting my goals in how I ease. Because how I rest, how I care for my body and my mind and my nervous system are intricately related and a part of this process. And without bringing some awareness to how I ease, all of the active processes, all of my intention, all of my actions will not be supported as best as they can. So when I'm talking about how I ease, I'm talking about things like how I'm sleeping, how I'm checking in with my body to see what it needs. I'm talking about other modalities as well, like breath work, about meditation and nervous system work. And while some of these may seem to have an active or an intentional property to them, all of it is about supporting the rest, the ease, the downtime that my body needs to support these goals, to thrive, and to create a long-lasting change in my relationship with my body. Now, I'd like to give you one example of this shift and how it exemplifies not only this change that's happening inside my body, but also how the world's changing and how people are starting to see things differently, because we have been in a mode for a long time of push, push, push. Put in the overtime, put in the extra time. We can catch up on sleep later. We can not worry about what we're eating right now because we just have to get the thing done that's right in front of us. And I was like that for most of my life. And one of the things, the patterns, the habits that I was in almost on a daily basis was I would start my day with a cup of coffee. And by the time, I don't know, we got after lunch, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, there would be this lull. There would be this fatigue that sets in, this tired feeling that I had inside me. And I would take that tired cue and I would go to the coffee shop or I would go to the cabinet and I would make myself another cup of coffee. And this is in the culture. This is the coffee break that we know of at any work environment, in many cultures across the world. And it actually has an interesting history that started with big companies noticing that if they gave their employees a coffee break, that they were actually more productive in the afternoon. And caffeine is a type of drug. It is a stimulant. And so this sort of industrialized model understood that if it gave its workers this substance, that it would get more productivity. And so it actually started to design the coffee break into the workday to help productivity, because everything was about producing more and keeping the worker bees going. But every input to a system has some sort of effect. There's always compensation going on. And at some point for me, I noticed that more caffeine input wasn't helpful. And this relationship with caffeine and this midday lull became an invitation to look at it, to be more curious. And I began to understand through studying how caffeine works that while caffeine seems to give you energy, essentially what it's doing is muting your body's natural communication to you that you're tired and that you need rest. So think of it like you've got a cut on the bottom of your foot. You know that to be your best, that cut actually needs to heal so that you can walk again. But if all you were to do was to just numb the cut and continue to walk on that foot, it would not be able to heal. It would not be able to ultimately get better. And if you were to just continue down this path of numbing, the wound would just get worse and worse and worse until you couldn't ignore the problem anymore. And on some level, this is what goes on with caffeine, because you're just muting your body's natural communication to, hey, take a rest, slow down. And I played with this for a while, and this is now part of my day, where if I feel a lull in the middle of the day, I don't reach for a second cup of coffee anymore. I check in with my body, and I'll actually just sit down sometimes for 5 or 10 minutes. I might close my eyes for 15 minutes. I'll take a look at what my day has, and I'll offer some rest to my body in any way that I can. And it is so much more effective than my previous approach with just applying more numbing. And there's this other side to this that's interesting and opens up a whole new world for you, because if my day is really full and I feel and notice the exhaustion, and I know that I can't stop, I don't have a window where I can stop what I'm doing, rest, lay down, then I will actually do this mental exercise where I let my body know, hey, I'm sorry, I can't give you the rest that you need right now, but I hear you. And then I figure out another time in the rest of my day later on that I'll be able to offer that to you. It's almost like I'm treating my body as a partner, a friend, a child of mine, where I'll actually say to myself, hey, I know you're tired right now. I hear you. We can't rest right now. But at 6 o'clock, I know we're going to have a 30-minute window. And at that point, I'll actually be able to give you some rest. We'll sit down, we'll lay down for 10 minutes and close our eyes. And all I'm going to do is ask you to just try this out yourself, because I've been shocked at how this conversation with my body and checking in with the state of where I'm at and just having this open dialogue actually gives me energy, gives me a sort of relief. There's actually this sort of rest that can happen. And I believe it's something that's actually happening within the nervous system when you're letting your body know that you hear its signals and you are responding to it and you want to care for it. So how I ease is expressed in ways like this. It's a mindset, but it's also tools and things that I'm doing. I start most of my day with a slow movement practice. You could call it yoga, you could call it stretching. It's just different stretches that I've learned help my body with mobility, help my body just wake up in the morning. After that, I typically meditate for 5 to 10 minutes. And at some point, I can talk a lot about meditation and all the different ways that I've experimented with it and what I've learned. But the simplest and most direct path or way that I can talk about the benefits is by offering yourself a practice of quietness, of stillness. It opens up all sorts of ways that you get to interact with your environment in your day. Because meditation for me is not some practice to experience or achieve enlightenment. Meditation is a practice of being still and noticing how busy the mind can be and about letting it go. We are so unaware of how fast our mind tries to solve problems for us. This, again, is because we're products of this productivity, modernization, cross of planning. Figure out a plan. You're safe if you are following a plan or following someone else's plan or in the program or doing what you were told to do. And our mind has all these cues and stories and is constantly trying to keep us safe and do the best for us. But our mind will never stop unless we learn how to be at rest. And this is what meditation offers, a chance to be still, to be calm, to feel some uncomfortability with the stillness for many of us, especially if you're starting out for the first time, and to find the space that's inside us that exists before a thought actually arises. And the best example of my practice is to sit down in a quiet room with my eyes closed and to just follow my breath or follow one point of feeling in my body and to just focus there. And by following, for instance, your breath, just noticing the rise and fall of your chest, or maybe the quality of the air, if it's cold or warm. You notice all these tiny details, and initially that's giving your mind something to work on, something to focus on. And if you stick there long enough, you can finally let that go, and you'll sink into this feeling of calm, of this space before any thoughts. Or what's more likely to happen if you get started with a practice like this is you will be focusing on your breath, and then a thought will come up into your mind. You might think of the meeting that you have later on, or it might be that you notice an itch on the back of your neck. Whatever the thought that arises is going to come. It's part of the process. And it's an opportunity to let go of that thought and return your attention back to your breath. And so I think of this sometimes as like a river. Your mind is this river of thoughts constantly passing by. And you might see a twig or a leaf go by, and you grab it and you pick it up and you look at it. And the picking up the leaf is what our mind is doing when we say, oh, I got that appointment later on today, or, oh, hey, my back is actually a little sore right now. And the process of letting that go is simply the process of taking that leaf or that twig and putting it back in the river and returning back to the breath. And without some goal, again, of enlightenment or arriving someplace, I found that doing this practice, even for 5 or 10 minutes a day, has been deeply, deeply helpful in finding calm and peace and staying regulated throughout my day. I'm also practicing breath work about once a week. There's a great teacher in our area, and there's a 45-minute class that I take advantage of when I can. And I find that this time becomes a lot of things. It becomes a place of rest. It becomes a place to just quiet myself. And it can have a meditative quality, but there's also so much science and understanding about the health benefits of breath work, both to the body and to the nervous system. And so I find that doing this practice once a week is incredibly helpful in supporting my goals while being something that I do to express how I ease. But outside of the practices, how I ease really is this foundational mindset that has been in the language and supporting everything that I'm doing in how I approach this, because this isn't just about grinding and working harder and pushing myself. And the interesting thing is, even though I've got this different language about it, you will find these truths in bodybuilding culture, some of the most ripped, juiced up bodybuilder guys that I've followed on YouTube or I listen to them talk, everyone has a language at some point of rest. They talk about deload weeks where you bring down the volume and the intensity of your works. They talk about rest days. They talk about junk volume, meaning at a certain point, doing more doesn't actually help the system be efficient. And so while I've got this idea of rest and ease that I'm bringing to you today, and it's a different perspective that I haven't heard, the culture's coming online with this more and more, and it's actually been in the science. It's been in these wellness and fitness cultures for a long time. It's just worded different. Maybe there's not enough emphasis on it because it isn't sexy. You can't sell a Nike ad with how I ease, but you can with hustle harder. But how I ease is fundamental to this whole thing for me. And if you're making a change, if you have some goals, then how you hold these things, how you hold your goals, how you hold yourself in these goals is vitally crucial to how you will be able to show up day after day to achieve those goals. All right, that's it for week 5 and how I ease. And I'm easing into this week 5, staying consistent, checking in with myself, and no new developments, but I'm seeing consistent progress. I'm continuing to get stronger, continuing to see the scale weight drop, which is all supporting my goals. So I'm easing into this week, just like I have from the start of this. And I hope you would consider how you can ease into yours as well. All right, bye for now.